Alec Lightwood is my all-time favorite character from the Mortal Instruments series. In the graphic novel artwork, he is depicted sitting amongst Daphne flowers, flowers that represent honesty and immortality, with the quotation underneath his portrait reading, "Don't change," which perfectly coincides with Alec's character arc. He was perfectly cast in the Shadowhunters TV series, with Matthew Daddario taking on the role of the insecure, closeted, poorly dressed acting head of the New York Institute, and it did a great justice to his character. But there are a lot of details that the show either glossed over, did not get a chance to include, or got added in to add to the drama of the show. Today, I hope to do justice to Alec's character as I dive into his story from the novels, and even the short stories that got released after the series concluded. But even though I will be going over his book canon, as I did with my Life of Jace Harrendale video, I will be including visuals from both the City of Bones movie and the Shadowhunters television series to help make things more visually pleasing for you guys. Now, let's begin. Alec Gideon Lightwood was born as the eldest child of Robert and Maris Lightwood in Idris. He was exiled from his homeland and banned from returning unless it was for official Clave business, since his parents had both been members of Valentine Morgenstern's circle. His parents were sent to the New York Institute, where he lived the rest of his life. 2 years after his birth, his mother would give birth to his younger sister, Isabel, and then his little brother Max was born when Alec was 9 years old. After Max was born, Alec took up the responsibility of helping raise his baby brother. Alec being so natural with Max led to him being wonderful with young children, and this naturally inclined him to almost act as a father figure whenever his father and mother were summoned to Idris for Clave meetings, and he, Izzy, and Max were often left under the supervision of their tutor, Hodge Starkweather, who acted as almost like a godfather to them. Growing up, Alec had the utmost respect for his father and his mother. His relationship with his father was strained because Alec often feared Robert and felt constant pressure to make his dad proud of him. And although Robert was proud, he never vocalized it, which often left Alec feeling inferior and thinking no matter what he did, it would never be good enough for Robert. But this was well made up for by the love he received from his mother, who was the softer parent, a wonderful cook, and a very warm and nurturing person. Also during his childhood, he became acquainted with the Penhallow family and their daughter, Aline, whom he got along well with due to them both being shy and on the quieter side, feeling as though he could communicate with her without even needing to talk. From a young age, Alec struggled with his sexual orientation. As young as age 11, Alec would often glance at other boys his age and find them attractive, which did not go unnoticed by his sister. Once when he was 11 years old, Alec developed a small crush on the vampire Raphael Santiago when he first glanced at him when Raphael arrived at the New York Institute. Shortly after this, Jace Wayland was adopted by Robert and Maris, and Alec developed an instant attraction toward Jace, which he closed off and kept hidden for years, and he and Jace became each other's parabatai. But all the while, he continued having a strong romantic interest in Jace. But because it was looked down upon by the Clave, Alec stayed in the closet. To help him keep his secret, Izzy took most of the attention off Alec by using her body and her femininity to flirt with and date many downworlders, determined to protect him. Even so, Alec stayed in the closet and worried that Jace and his parents would never accept him, and this led to Alec internalizing a lot of self-hatred, and it also led to him growing extremely sensitive, especially when those would bring up his sexuality. By the time he reached his teenage years, he did whatever it took to not stand out and hid behind Isabel and Jace, often not voicing opinions of his own and obeying whatever orders were given to him, acting as a buffer between Jace and Izzy, who had more fun being rule breakers. Although he was very handsome, with piercing blue eyes and thick black hair, he often wore raggedy sweatpants and wholly worn-out sweaters and t-shirts, and his hair often looked as though he cut it himself, which is a testament to how little self-worth he had, and how he felt he was undeserving of attention, to a point where he had no pride in how he presented himself to others. Additionally, Alec often refrained from killing any demon, and not because he was afraid, but rather he was more concerned about the well-being of his siblings, and he often acted as a healer for the group whenever Izzy or Jace got hurt in the field. One night, in August of 2007, Alec, Jace, and Izzy were out scouting for demons at the Pandemonium Club. Izzy led a demon into the storage closet and tied him up with her whip, and Alec and Jace emerged from the shadows to finish the demon off. But before they could, they were stalled by the demon blabbering about Valentine Morgenstern's return, as well as a sighted mundane named Clary Fray, who'd snuck into the closet to stop them. Alec, upon seeing Clary, was the first to speak, asking, "What's this?" And Jace replied, "It's a girl. Surely you've seen girls before, Alec. Your sister Isabel is one." After that night, Alec became especially annoyed with Jace after his parabatai brought Clary to the Institute, instantly disliking her due to Jace's newfound obsession with her. From the moment he laid eyes on her after she'd woken up, Alec made his hostility toward Clary very clear, often glaring at her and talking down to her, calling her a little kid, to which Clary snapped back and called him a spoiled rich brat. Alec demanded whether Jace would just stand there and let Clary call him names, to which Jace told him to think of it as endurance training, that it would be a good chance to build character, to which Alec replied with, "We may be parabatai, but your flippancy is wearing on my patience." Alec refused to believe Clary killed the Ravener demon that had poisoned her, suggesting the demon had committed suicide by stabbing itself in the neck with its pincher, and he suggested they report Clary's presence to the Clave, refusing to believe Clary was anything less than a mundane, which led to Jace revealing that he drew the Aratsi healing rune on Clary to cure her, much to the outrage of Hodge, who told Jace that he could have turned Clary into a Forsaken. Alec told Jace, "I can't believe you, Jace. Only shadow hunters can receive marks from the Grey Book. They kill mundanes." To which Jace told him, "She's not a mundane. Haven't you been listening? It explains why she can see us. She must have Clave blood." It was after this interaction that Alec's hostility toward Clary bloomed into pure hatred, because not only was Clary the new center of attention and springing forth trouble for his family, but she was also the object of Jace's affections, representing to Alec everything that he wanted but couldn't have. Despite his reservations, Alec begrudgingly agreed to help Jace and Clary lead the investigation regarding the abduction of Clary's mom, Jocelyn. While following up on a lead, Alec, Jace, Izzy, and Simon went to a party being thrown by the High Warlock of Brooklyn, Magnus Bane. At the party, Alec went with Jace and Clary to speak with Magnus about retrieving Clary's lost memories, and Magnus opened up about his abusive childhood and how his stepfather tried drowning him in a creek, to which Magnus defended himself by burning his stepdad right where he stood. Much to the surprise of everyone, it was Alec who told Magnus that it wasn't his fault, and that Magnus couldn't help the way that he was born, and at the end of the party, Magnus winked at Alec and told him, "Call me," hinting at his interest in Alec. After Jace disobeyed orders by helping Clary rescue Simon from Rafael Santiago's vampire clan, Alec confronted her, demanding that Clary leave the Institute and telling her that she didn't have a place there, calling her as good as a mundane, and saying,
"Jace thinks he needs to save the world, but you don't need to encourage him to do it."
This led to Clary angrily snapping at Alec. She was hurt by Alec going out of his way to be hostile toward her, and she decided to hit him with what she knew would hurt him most in retaliation. And she informed Alec that Jace had told her that up until that year, Alec had never killed a demon before because he was too afraid. Yes, Jace did tell her that Alec hadn't killed a demon up until age 17, but for a completely different reason. It was because Alec cared more about the well-being of his family and worried about whether they lived or died, not because he was afraid of his sexual orientation. In the book, Alec was said to look as though Clary had slapped him, and he said he wouldn't say that. And Clary responded with a blow of her own, telling him,
"And if you were half as brave as you pretend to be, you'd admit that you're in love with Jace, and that's what this is really about."
Alec, Hurt and angry by Clary throwing his dirty laundry in his face, but also understanding to a small degree that she was right, that in fact he was a coward when it came to admitting how he felt about Jace, grabbed her and slammed her against the wall. Alec demanded she never say another word about him and his sexuality, or Alec would kill her, saying, "I swear on the angel, I'll kill you." After Alec walked away, Clary felt horrible for how she'd treated him in return, knowing that she'd hurt him. Later on, while retrieving the mortal cup from Clary's neighbor Madame Dorothea, it was revealed the daughter of a warlock had been murdered and possessed by a greater demon, Abaddon. In the fight, everyone was left bruised and battered, but Alec suffered the most life-threatening injuries out of everyone due to the greater demon's ichor entering his bloodstream, to a point where even an Arazzi wouldn't work to heal him. Even while injured, Alec asked if he successfully killed Abaddon, to which Clary lied to him and said he did, when in fact it was Simon who'd done it. But she said this as a way to make up with Alec after the cruel words she'd said to him earlier, not wanting her last words with him to be ones of malice. After they got Alec back to the Institute, Clary apologized to Jace, explaining that she never wanted anything bad to happen to Alec, to which Jace shouldered the responsibility, blaming himself for what had happened to his parabatai. Throughout this moment, Clary worried about Alec's health, not wanting him to die, thinking that she hated him, all the while blaming herself just as much as Jace blamed himself. Unfortunately, Hodge was unable to treat Alec, and Hodge, knowing he was about to abandon the children to side with Valentine, contacted Magnus Bane as a last-ditch effort to try and make things right, knowing that Magnus could heal Alec. After Alec recovered, Clary went to the Institute and ended up talking with both Izzy and Alec, to which she told him that she was glad he was all right, and he offered to walk Clary up to the greenhouse to find Jace, which led to a heart-to-heart between the pair, with Alec telling her that he knew he hadn't been the one to kill Abaddon, but he appreciated Clary telling him he'd done it, to which Clary laughed uncomfortably and said, "You appreciate me lying to you?" And Alec told her, "You did it out of kindness. That means a lot, that you would be kind to me even after how I treated you." And they forgave each other, with Alec joking about Jace and Clary being siblings, claiming Clary to be an incredible artist, whereas Jace could barely draw a straight line, meaning he somehow doubted that Jace and Clary were related at all. And Clary decided that she liked this carefree, relaxed side of Alec, a side of his personality that he rarely showed due to how insecure he was, and that she could get used to being around him. After he learned about what Magnus had done for him, Alec went to Magnus's apartment to thank him. After verifying Magnus's romantic interest in him, Alec decided to ask Magnus out, to which Magnus gave Alec his first kiss and agreed to go on a date with him, and they continued seeing each other for several weeks in secret. For the next few weeks, Alec was left as the sole adult supervisor due to Hodge's departure. One night, he, Jace, and Izzy came back from a hunt with dragon demons. Alec and Jace were covered in mud due to the mission going awry thanks to Jace's recklessness, but Izzy remained pristine as ever. Jace asked Alec if he was still mad, to which Alec replied, "I'm not mad." And Jace said, "Oh yes you are," which led to Alec punching Jace on the arm and saying, "I am not. Just because you said dragon demons were extinct." Jace replied, claiming they were mostly extinct, and Alec yelled at him, saying that mostly extinct was not extinct enough. And Jace replied just as sassily, saying, "I see. I'll just have them change the entry in the demonology textbook from almost extinct to not extinct enough for Alec. He prefers his monsters really, really extinct. Will that make you happy?" While they were arguing and joking about trailing mud across Maris's antique rugs, Alec and Izzy's mother arrived in the hallway, informing them that only she and Max were both home, and that the Clave was aware of their endeavors in rescuing Jocelyn Fairchild, and all of the unsanctioned missions they'd gone on, as well as the news that Jace was Valentine's son. This led to Maris and Robert allowing the vindictive High Inquisitor, Imogen Herondale, to come in and investigate Jace, due to members of the Clave suspecting that Jace was secretly in league with Valentine, and he was sentenced to the City of Bones to spend a night in prison. Clary, Alec, and Izzy went to rescue Jace, and afterward, Imogen exiled Jace from the Institute, and Alec called upon a favor from his boyfriend, who offered Jace to stay with him in his apartment until Alec, Izzy, and Clary found a way to clear Jace's name. During this time, Alec continued his secret relationship with Magnus, but he did a terrible job of hiding it. At one point, Jace noticed Alec had a bruise on his neck and asked him how he got it, wondering if Alec had run into a vampire or picked a fight with a pack of werewolves. This led to Alec turning bright red and saying, "What? No, I fell!" And Jace asked him, "On your neck?" Another time, while visiting Jace at Magnus's, Clary and Simon arrived to find Alec curled up outside Magnus's door, lying on the ground, glamoured and hidden from the mundanes, while trying to hide the fact that he'd been staying nights there. Even Magnus did a bad job of keeping the relationship a secret, due to him helping Alec and his friends free of charge. It eventually led to Jace putting together the pieces that Alec and Magnus were secretly a couple, and after they discovered Clary's new ability to create her own runes, they tested out this theory by having her draw a fearless rune on Alec, and the rune proved to be effective, as when Robert and Maris arrived with Imogen at Luke's apartment to take Jace away, Alec started to blabber to his parents about how he was dating a downworlder, and he almost came out as gay to his family. Luckily for him, Magnus snapped him out of it using magic, not wanting Alec to come out to his family under those circumstances. The night that Jace was to be transferred to Alicante to serve time with the Clave, Alec snuck down to free Jace, who was entrapped by Malachi configuration. Although it had been Jace's undiscovered skills from his pure angelic blood that freed him from the cage, it was Alec who ultimately helped him, making it clear whose side he was on. While Jace and Clary went off to Valentine's boat to battle him and free Simon Lewis and Maya Roberts, Alec and Izzy covered for them. Maris was about to vouch for Jace and convince Imogen to call off the investigation, realizing they were imprisoning an innocent child. But Alec unwittingly blurted out to his mother that Jace had already broken free and was on his way to Valentine's ship. Alec and Izzy joined the battle on Valentine's boat, backing Jace and Clary up. At one point during the fight, Alec was thrown overboard by a demon, and fortunately for him, he was rescued by a weakened Magnus, and Alec offered Magnus his strength for his endeavors in helping him and his friends, giving Magnus something in return for all the times Magnus had helped him. After the battle aboard Valentine's boat, Magnus and Alec continued dating secretly, the only ones aware of it being Jace, Isabel, Simon, Clary, and Luke. Alec and his family went to Idris for the signing of the 9th Accords, and they stayed with their family friends, the Penhallows, as well as Aline's cousin, Sebastian Verloc. But Simon inadvertently joined them along for the ride when they were attacked by a group of Forsaken, and Alec was tasked with taking Simon to the consul, Malachi Diodone, and both boys were under the impression that Simon would be sent back to New York. It was during this time that Simon and Alec had a conversation, and Simon came to the conclusion that Izzy often used her sexuality and objectified herself to help Alec hide his homosexuality. But unbeknownst to everyone, Simon instead was delivered to the newly appointed High Inquisitor Aldertree, who imprisoned the Daylighter and sent him to the Guard, and Alec learned of this through Magnus secondhand. But when Valentine's army of demons began to infiltrate Alicante, Alec went looking for Aline, who'd been attacked by a demon. Instead, he encountered Magnus fighting a group of Iblis demons in Cistern Square. While helping him, the two discussed their relationship, and Alec promised he would properly introduce Magnus to his family and come out on his terms if they survived the battle. At the Accords Hall, Alec was infuriated when he saw Sebastian there, because Alec had left Isabel and Max under Sebastian's protection. Sebastian, however, told Alec that Maris and Robert were with Izzy and Max. Believing him, Alec joined Clary and Jace in rescuing Simon from the Guard. At the Guard, they broke Simon free, and they ended up encountering another prisoner there, who introduced himself as Samuel Blackburn. But when they freed Samuel, they found out that it was actually their former tutor, Hodge Starkweather. Alec and Jace angrily confronted Hodge about his lies and betrayal of their family. Hodge revealed to them Valentine's plans for the mortal instruments, and that the mortal mirror, the third of the mortal instruments needed, was Lake Lynn, the very lake that the angel Raziel rose out of centuries ago. But before they could get more information out of Hodge, Sebastian arrived and murdered Hodge right where he stood. During this confrontation, they learned Sebastian to be a spy for Valentine. Sebastian moved into a speech about how sickened he was by every single one of them, sneering about how Jace spent half his time either whining about how Valentine made him feel unloved or panting after his own sister. He called Clary a stupid bitch, and about Alec, he said, "I think we all know what's wrong with you. They shouldn't let your kind in the Clave. You're disgusting." Alec was said to pale at this, looking astonished that the charming young man with an angelic smile could be so capable of saying such inflammatory language, full of hate. They tried engaging with him in battle, but Sebastian had the upper hand. He was only stopped by Simon biting him. When they arrived back at the Accords Hall, Alec and Jace were shocked to see their little brother, Max, was dead. Maris blamed the Penhallows for their negligence in looking after her children, but Alec tried getting his mother to see reason and understand that it wasn't the Penhallows' fault, and they held a funeral for Max. In preparation for the impending battle against Valentine, Clary convinced the Clave of her gift to create her own runes, due to her having pure angel blood. Alec vouched for her, explaining she'd drawn the Fearless rune on him, and it had proven to be effective. Clary proceeded to draw alliance runes on everyone to bind shadow hunters with downworlders to give them the upper hand. Alec, while drawing his alliance rune on Magnus, kissed him in front of everyone, making it known to everyone that not only was he dating a downworlder, but he was also gay and proud of who he was. Together, Alec and Magnus went into battle with their allies in the Brosseland Plain, facing off Valentine's army of demons. During this battle, Alec felt his parapetite bond with Jace severing, due to Jace having gotten killed by Valentine. But when he saw Jace alive and well after the battle, he convinced himself that he'd imagined the whole thing. During the victory party in Angel Square, Alec formally introduced Magnus to his parents as his boyfriend, and they savored the peace after the mortal war. Unfortunately for Alec, things changed. After he came out, he had to deal with people's snide comments during council meetings, and he felt everyone stopped taking him seriously as a leader. Even though Maris accepted him, he felt Robert hadn't, and much to Alec's horror, Robert at one point asked his son what had turned him gay. Magnus, seeing how upset and stressed out Alec was over this, planned an impromptu vacation, and they traveled the world together, their first stop being Paris. During their time away, they sent Jace countless photos of their travels, full of annoying captions like, "Wish you were here, but not really," and Clary expressed happiness at Alec and Magnus having a great time on their romantic trip. However, before they could truly enjoy their trip, Magnus got called to mission by the Spiral Council. Magnus was tasked with tracking down and ending a cult called the Crimson Hand, which Magnus had founded centuries ago, but he had no recollection of. Together, they tracked the cult to their old headquarters in Venice and recovered the cult's sacred text, the Red Scrolls of Magic, with help of a former member, Xinyang Zheng. Following the line from the scrolls, they went to Rome, where Alec ran into Aline, who assisted them in their investigation. Alec and Aline eventually found Magnus kneeling in front of an amphitheater, where Xinyu Zheng had a sword pointed at him, demanding Magnus summon the greater demon, Asmodeus, who just so happened to be his father. After the mission was over, Alec and Magnus went back to Magnus's apartment, opting to spend the rest of their vacation in bed together, all the while sending forged photographs of them in Berlin, Madrid, and Vienna. Their vacation was cut short when the Clave requested Magnus's presence because Camille Belcourt, the New York Vampire Clan's leader, demanded he be there for her interrogation. It was then that Magnus revealed Camille had been one of his many ex-girlfriends, which led to his relationship with Alec being strained, because Alec began having doubts and insecurities in terms of how short his life was in comparison to Magnus's, because it left him him realizing that he truly didn't know everything there was to know about his boyfriend. Their argument went on for days, with Magnus refusing to talk to Alec about his past, and when Camille escaped Clave custody, Alec and the others went searching for her, also discovering that Simon had gone missing as well. During the search, they were led to the Church of Talto, a cult that worshipped the mother of all demons, Lilith, and discovered the group was sacrificing babies to attempt at creating another half-demon child like Sebastian, who'd been killed during the Mortal War. Alec, Maya, and Izzy, upon seeing how many dead babies there were lying there in the cradles, were greatly affected by the sight of it. Alec was sickened by the sight of so many innocent babies being dead, and was said to be swearing under his breath as tears streamed down his face, due to him being particularly empathetic and soft toward young children, having helped raise his late little brother Max from the time Max had been born. Alec's voice was said to be filled with naked hatred when he asked Izzy why anybody would want to create more children like Sebastian, who'd been pure evil and taken the life of his baby brother. Later on, they found Simon and Lilith on the rooftop of the church, as well as the corpse of Sebastian, whom Lilith planned to resurrect using Jace's blood. But in the battle, Alec got separated from the others. While he was chasing down a cultist, he ran into Camille, who told him she'd been the one killing ex-Circle members, and she exploited Alec's weakness, promising ways for him and Magnus to be together forever. After Lilith was sent back to hell, Alec sent a fire message to the Clave asking for backup. Jace asked Alec to take care of Clary, who'd broken her ankle during the battle and had a concussion. Clary told Alec that Jace didn't want her near him, and she thought that there was something wrong with her, and Alec surprised her by comforting her, first saying, "Because I know him, and the way he punishes himself. Not letting you near him is punishing himself, not punishing you." And then he added in, "You're all he ever wants." And Clary noted something to be different about Alec, that he seemed surer of himself, and this allowed him to be more generous toward other people, as he had never been generous with himself before. When members of the Clave and Magnus arrived, Alec and the others briefly left Jace on the rooftop to greet everyone, but this bought Sebastian just enough time to telepathically convince Jace to resurrect him, and together, Jace disappeared into the night with Sebastian. And although he and Magnus reconciled, Alec was still greatly insecure about his own mortality and didn't tell Magnus about his encounter with Camille. For weeks, a search for Jace was initiated by the Clave. Despite some doubts from some members of the Clave, Alec was confident that Jace was still alive, as his parapetide bond with Jace was still there, but he did sense that something was very wrong. Also during this time, Aline revealed Alec had inspired her to come out as a lesbian, and she'd begun a relationship with Helen Blackthorn. Aline revealed to Izzy and Alec that their father was applying for the job of the High Inquisitor, something that immensely disappointed the both of them, as they felt they barely spent enough time with their father as it was, but they accepted it, as Robert had already been distant from them for the past few years. Desperate to find Jace, Alec and Izzy agreed to go with Clary to the Sealy Court and strike a deal with the Queen if necessary. The Queen agreed to help them, under the condition that they return a pair of rings that were in the Institute. But when Alec and Simon offended the Queen by making fun of her, the Queen put a glamour on Alec to make him appear and feel like an old man, taunting him with his worst insecurities about growing old while Magnus remained young. Clary was quick to apologize on their behalf, and the Queen took the glamour off, but it was enough to leave Alec desperate. Alec especially grew more insecure when he noticed a snuff box in Magnus's apartment with the initials WS inscribed on them. It left Alec thinking the snuff box had been a gift from one of Magnus's exes. Alec asked about it, and it began an argument between the couple where Magnus pointed out that immortality was becoming the third person in this relationship. Afterward, Alec met with the others at Turtle Pond, where Clary told them that she saw Jace at the Institute looking chummy with Sebastian, which made no sense to any of them. After Jace and Sebastian tried to abduct Clary, Brother Zachariah revealed that Jace was connected to Sebastian by a twinning rune and a demonic counterpart of the parapetized ceremony, which involved feeling what the other felt and dying if the other died, and that no weapon could ever sever it. Alec was devastated by this. knowing that there was no foreseeable way of getting his parabatai back. The group ultimately decided they would try to consult with the Iron Sisters about a weapon that could sever the connection. While Izzy and Jocelyn went to talk to the Iron Sisters, Alec snuck away to meet with Camille, who told him of a spell that could rid a warlock of immortality, but she would do it in exchange for Alec killing Rafael Santiago, one of Magnus's oldest friends whom Magnus loved like a son or a brother. When the Iron Sisters revealed there wasn't a way they could make a weapon to break Jace's connection with Sebastian, the group decided that they would summon Azazel, and Simon revealed that Clary had gone with Jace and Sebastian to act as a mole, and he was able to communicate with her through the Seelie rings. When they summoned Azazel, he demanded a happy memory from each of them. Magnus, realizing they'd been tricked, refused, and banished him back to hell. Alec also ultimately decided that he wouldn't go along with Camille's demand of killing Raphael, and they realized that Simon's Mark of Cain could protect him if they summoned an angel to get the weapon they'd need. They summoned Raziel at Luke's farmhouse, where Raziel gave Simon the sword, Glorious, which was filled with heavenly fire. Through Clary, the group discovered Sebastian's plans to create and darken slaves using the Infernal Cup, a demonic version of the Mortal Cup. Alec and Izzy coordinated to get their cavalry together, and they portaled to the ritual site. Unfortunately, several shadow hunters had already been turned. After the battle, Alec gave his strength to Magnus, who'd been gravely injured during the fight. Alec and Izzy stayed with Jace in the infirmary, and when Jace awoke, the siblings had a heart-to-heart, with Alec assuring Jace that there were no hard feelings. Alec once again went to meet with Camille so he could refuse her offer, but unbeknownst to him, Camille had set their meeting as a trap for Magnus to overhear everything about their past conversation. Alec was surprised to hear Magnus had been planning to use the Book of the White to make himself mortal, and Magnus, saddened and hurt by Alec potentially taking that away from him, gave Alec one final kiss, breaking up with him. Alec, infuriated with himself and Camille, looked to kill her, but Maureen Brown, who'd been sired by Simon, had already killed Camille, which made Maureen the new head of the New York vampire clan. Alec remained in a state of shock for several weeks after his and Magnus's breakup. He and even his family and friends constantly tried to contact Magnus, but to no avail. Nonetheless, Alec relentlessly tried well into December. One day, Jace grabbed Alec's phone and noticed the hundreds of text messages Alec kept sending to his ex and snapped the phone in half, which led to Alec yelling, "You broke my phone!" And Jace just shrugged, saying, "Guys don't let other guys keep calling other guys." Okay, that came out wrong. Friends don't let friends keep calling their exes and hanging up. Seriously, you have to stop. Soon enough, the Clave called for an immediate worldwide evacuation of all shadow hunters to Idris due to several institutes around the world being attacked. Before he left with his family and friends, Alec was confronted by Magnus, who asked him what he wanted to tell him over the phone. But truthfully, Magnus was immensely worried for Alec's safety and confessed he'd been avoiding talking to Alec because he knew he might not be able to resist him, and it led to Magnus frantically kissing him. While Magnus forgave Alec, he knew that their relationship would simply never work due to Alec's mortality. Alec snapped angrily, claiming it to be partially his fault because he'd given up too easily, that he should have fought harder for Magnus. Once they arrived in Idris, Alec, Jace, and Izzy stayed in the Penhallows home, and they received more news about Sebastian's attacks. Alec hoped to join the battle at the Ottomant Citadel, but they were stopped by Maris and Robert. It was during their confrontation with their mother and father did Isabel reveal Robert had been having an affair and had planned to leave them had Max not been born. Alec was disgusted by his father's infidelity and went to try and convince the new consul, Gia Penhallow, to portal him and Izzy to the Citadel, but he felt a surge of pain that he knew immediately had to do with Jace and the Heavenly Fire. When he went back to the Penhallows home to collect Isabel, he was shocked to walk in on Izzy and Simon role-playing in his bedroom. Sometime later on, a member of the council slipped up about the Downworlder representatives, which included Clary's mom, Luke, Raphael, Meliorn, and Magnus, being missing. The endarkened Matthias Gonzalez arrived, informing them that Sebastian had kidnapped the representatives from the Downworlder cabinet in exchange for Jace and Clary. When they went to the Seelie court to travel to Edom, they learned Meliorn had been in cahoots with Sebastian, and that the Fey folk had betrayed them all, due to Seelies always choosing the stronger side in the battle. Alec ended up shooting Meliorn with his bow and arrow, killing him. When they entered Edom, a demon that fed on dreams created an illusion based on their dreams, a flawed one. In Alec's dream, he was being honored by the Clave as a hero of the Dark War, with Magnus by his side as his fiancé, and his entire family was present, including his late baby brother Max. On top of that, in the vision, he got all he ever wanted, which was his father proclaiming that he was proud of his son. But then the seemingly perfect illusion broke when, in the vision, Jace told Alec that he had a crush on him, and Clary expressed an interest in seeing them together. Luckily, Alec snapped out of it and killed the demon. After that, they hid out in a cave, and before Jace went to patrol with Clary, he demanded Alec find a way to get them some food and water to bake a pie or something. And when Jace and Clary returned, Alec delivered one of the sassiest, most badass comebacks he ever could have given throughout the whole series, saying, "I did not make a pie," for 3 reasons. 1, because I do not have any pie ingredients. 2, because I don't actually know how to make a pie. And when Jace asked for the 3rd reason, Alec replied, "Because I am not your bitch." Eventually, they fought their way to that realm's version of the Guard, and Alec and Izzy freed Magnus and Luke. Alec reunited with Magnus, who'd gotten sick due to his father's influence on him and the realm. While cutting Magnus free, Magnus weakly told Alec to name his blade Raphael in memory of the fallen Raphael Santiago, telling Alec that it's an angelic name as Raphael had sacrificed himself to save Magnus. They eventually reunited with everyone in the throne room, where Clary outsmarted Sebastian and stabbed him using the Morgenstern sword. Unfortunately for them, the borders between Edom and their world were sealing, and as a last resort, Magnus summoned his father, who demanded Magnus's immortality in exchange for their freedom. Alec tearfully told Magnus, "I don't want the world, I want you." But before Magnus could sacrifice himself, Simon voluntarily gave up his immortality, his vampirism, and his memories of the Shadow World. Everyone grieved Simon, and Alec reflected on how good Simon had been to Izzy, realizing that Simon truly did love his sister. Later, Alec sat on the rooftops of his father's home in Idris, and there, Magnus agreed that part of why they broke up had been because Magnus hadn't been transparent with Alec, and handed Alec a journal, which documented a few important events that had happened throughout his lifetime, and fans of the Shadow World can read these journal entries in the collection of short stories known as the Bane Chronicles. The pair then agreed they would give their relationship another shot, and they eventually moved in together, with Alec splitting his time between Magnus's apartment and the Institute. But while his relationship with Magnus grew stronger, Alec's relationship with his dad became more strained than ever. Months later, during Luke and Jocelyn's wedding reception, Robert made things right with his son, and he revealed the reason why he had such a hard time accepting Alec's sexuality was that Robert had ruined his own parabatai bond with the late Michael Wayland, who'd expressed romantic interest in him, and Robert revealed to Alec that he was, in fact, proud of him. From then on, Alec tried to forgive his dad, and after Simon was revealed to have ascended as a shadow hunter, Alec didn't know what to feel about Simon's return, and just stuck to ignoring him. In 2010, a navy-skinned baby boy was found abandoned on the steps of the Shadowhunter Academy. Fearing what the Clave might do, Magnus volunteered to take custody of the baby, and Alec, who especially loved children, agreed. Together, he and Magnus adopted the little boy and named him Max in honor of Alec's late little brother, and Alec proposed to Magnus, which the latter accepted, and they began wedding planning. In September of that year, warlocks Ragnar Fell and Shin Jung broke into Alec and Magnus's home to steal the Book of the White, and stabbed and wounded Magnus. Alec, worried about his family, tracked Xinyang to Shanghai and left his infant son in the care of Maris, while he and his friends hunted down the rogue warlocks. And after the fight was over, Alec was relieved when Jace decided he would take over as head of the New York Institute. 2 years later, Alec was called to the Buenos Aires Institute as a favor to Jem Carstairs. It was during this mission that Alec reflected upon his friendship with Clary, who'd sent him countless updates about Magnus and Max and texted him photographs of them, and it was revealed that Alec had grown to love her very much, because whether it be in grand gestures like ditching Simon's horrible band practices to go get tacos together, or something as small as sending him pictures of his fiancé and his son while he was away, Clary never once failed him where it mattered most. It was there that he met an orphan of the Dark War named Raphael in the local Shadowhunter market. Raphael instantly grew attached to Alec, and Alec in turn grew to love the little boy. He brought Raphael back to his home, and together he and Magnus adopted the child, and Magnus requested that they give Rafa the middle name Santiago in honor of the late vampire. During this time, Izzy and Simon got engaged, and during their engagement party, Alec confided in Clary that he was worried about members of the Clave showing up during the festivities, scared that they would take Raphael away from him and Magnus. Clary was quick to comfort him, assuring Alec that he was just misplacing his anxiety because Raphael had come into his life so suddenly, and that both he and Magnus were amazing fathers, that there truly wasn't anything for him to worry about because Alec, Magnus, Rafa, and Max loved each other so much. Alec called her wise, to which Clary remarked, "You didn't always think I was wise?" And he said, "No, I thought you were a pest. But I know better now," and kissed her on the top of the head. He even supported Jace wanting to propose to Clary, ready to embrace Clary as an adoptive sister-in-law. Later that year, Robert was killed, and Alec was distraught by the death of his father as well as an illness that was infecting all warlocks, with Magnus being affected much faster due to his power and constant usage of magic. Alec especially worried that Max would get sick from the disease, but thankfully, Max turned out to be alright, and Julian Blackthorne and Emma Carstairs managed to find a cure. Once Magnus began to recover, Alec helped efforts in countering the cohort's anti-downworlder acts. After the battle was over, Alec stepped up as the new consul and was elected, but Zara Dearborn and the rest of those incarcerated threatened mass suicide of the cohort if Alec didn't leave the Shadowhunter homeland. Alec uneasily agreed to leave, and he, Jace, and Clary formed a new government known as the Clave in Exile, with Jace and Clary in charge of the crisis team. Alec, now with the power to abolish the Cold Peace to ensure his and Magnus's marriage would be recognized under Clave law, got married to Magnus on the beaches of the Los Angeles Institute, with Jace standing by Alec's side acting as his sogen, giving him away to Magnus, allowing Alec to officially go by the name of Alexander Gideon Lightwood Bane and complete his and Magnus's family. Alec Lightwood is easily the most dynamic character in the Mortal Instruments, growing from an insecure, shy, angry boy hidden in the closet to a confident, strong-willed leader who began voicing his own opinions, as well as an incredible husband and father who would do anything to protect his family. He is one of the top-tiered Shadowhunters Chronicles characters, and ranks high on the list of my top 10 favorite YA protagonists of all time, because he is so much more than just a side character. He is just as much a main character as Clary is, and is equally important to the story being told. He is the character that has made me both laugh and cry throughout my time of not only reading the books, but also watching the City of Bones movie and the Shadowhunters television series, and I have nothing but unconditional love for him and his character arc. He has his vulnerabilities and his insecurities, but at the same time, he's also a complete badass and an amazing role model for young men, especially those in the LGBT community, because he is a testament that you can be 100% unapologetically yourself, while also respecting things like family and tradition, something that we do not see nearly enough of today, and something that I think many adolescents today need to see. Thank you for watching. If you're brand new here, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell for all notifications. And mark your calendars, because soon enough, I plan on doing a video dedicated to the entire life story of one of my all-time favorite Heroes of Olympus characters, Jace and Grace. Also be sure to leave a like and comment down below. All social media will be linked down below per usual. God bless, happy viewing, and have a nice day. See ya!